Happy Thursday. So this is Pedro De Leon.
Hey, everybody, and I'm Chihiro Kurokawa, and Pedro and I are here with Beyond Stocks. So we're two regular guys that are interested in learning more about and investing more in alts. And today's guest is Alexia Tuttle. Super excited to talk to her. Not only is she a female entrepreneur and investor, which we love talking to and supporting, but she's involved in a lot of stuff. So let me introduce her to you. Alexia Tuttle is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and business strategist. As a founder of Tuttle Equity, she transforms multifamily properties into thriving communities. She also hosts the Real Estate Players podcast, diving into top investing strategies. Beyond real estate, she runs Tuttle Nutrition, founded the hydration brand Drink More, that's MOR, and she also serves on the board of Cloud Dancer, which supports veterans. With a passion for building, optimizing, and connecting, Alexia is all about creating impact across industries. Alexia, welcome to the show.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I was like, this is going to take 15 minutes. Like, I don't know if you're going to have time for my intro, buddy.
Yeah. So thanks again. Let's start with your journey, right? Because a common thread with people like you and people like Pedro and like me, you know, we were like doing some sort of ho-hum regular corporate thing, perhaps, and then had some sort of higher calling. So walk us through your journey a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. But basically, I don't come from like a family of entrepreneurs or anything. Actually, my family's still in poverty for the most part. And so I think it's like I always knew I was meant for more. I always knew, like, studying people and thinking like, oh, I don't want to be a lifer here. I don't want to be a lifer there. Like, I was spinning my wheels a lot. You know, like I was like, okay, maybe I want to be, you know, I was always into fitness. So I was like, maybe I'll do something with that. And then I got into wanting to become a cop. It was like so many random things, I know. But, you know, I got into bodybuilding around, I don't know, 18, 19. So I moved out young, had kind of a really tough childhood, kind of a lot of violence, kind of a lot of just ineffective guidance, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. So I needed structure and discipline. And I think the bodybuilding weirdly gave me that and then made everything else in my life excel, which was kind of interesting because, you know, people usually get that with the veterans. Veterans get that when they go in for service. It's kind of a common thing. So my only relation to veterans besides my dark humor is usually like, hey, I needed that structure and discipline and I found it. And then through that, you know, I met my husband who had his business, Tuttle Nutrition. Well, it wasn't Tuttle Nutrition at the time. I had to rebrand us. But he was doing it and was still working per diem at the hospital as a dietitian. And I was like, okay, you have like 30,000 in like outstanding receivables. Do you want me to help you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I don't know. I just took the opportunity to revamp the business because he kind of gave me a free reign. He's like, I just want to answer clients. I was like, perfect. So I became partner legally. And then we kind of grew about 250% per year. I just had fun with it. I just kind of rode that wave. And I didn't realize how much I loved fixing processes and efficiencies and making things go better. I mean, every job I had prior to that, chiropractors, the random jobs, I always fix something, usually after 4 to 6 months. I revamped processes.
Got it.
And I was just like, just because I could see, okay, let me be in it for a bit and then let me figure out, oh, I'm good at this. I'm like a really good assistant unknowingly. Okay. I hate that, but I am really good at being that way. But learning something from the inside out is really how you get better at it, right? You find all the things that need fixing. So we grew a lot with Tuttle Nutrition, and that's our bread and butter. It's been over actually 10 years self-employed now, because eventually he had to quit the hospital, work from home full time. I was working for a lawyer who hated cops at the time, and I was in the process of becoming one, got pretty far in it. And then was like, all right, I'm staying home. Thank God I didn't do that. Just with the climate and everything, and knowing me, I just don't think I could work for anybody at this point in my life. Yeah, it was fun. But anyway, so we grew that. And then I was starting to, do my certifications, learn on the side, and then become a coach myself, just promoted us that way. But we haven't marketed for many, many years, all word of mouth. And then it kind of taught me what reputation and integrity and having your set morals can do when you lead with that in a business. And so then I looked at Chris, this was like 3 years ago. I was like, I don't want to be a slave to my computer anymore. He's like, what? I'm like, I want to buy apartments. He's like, what? It was so random. But I'm like, I'm that crazy person. Hey, you want to move to Texas? He's like, yeah. And 8 months later, we were here. So we do random shit. And we've worked with each other 24/7. If you want to buy our wallet, you'd be laughing constantly. But I was like, I want to buy apartments. He's like, okay, but like, let's have some ground rules. Like, keep this in the savings. Don't touch this. Make sure we save this much a month. And then everything else you can invest. I was like, perfect. So I was at a conference a week later. And
Got it.
Underwriting.
You're a woman of action, clearly.
I don't like being bored. If you learn anything from me, I have a lot of ideas. My husband's like, let's just go here. I was like, I need you, because honestly, I would do so much more if I didn't have something to ground me, right? But I love getting things done. It's very fulfilling to me, and I love it. I think part of that, you can psychoanalyze me, is growing up the way I did. You know, I don't want to be anywhere near that. So I'm like, all right, let me make sure I can get things done.
Now, I have a question, because you are an operationally minded person. Are you a control freak?
Oh yes, but I actually say this a lot to people. I'm a control freak that can be reasoned with. Okay.
Very, very
Very
good quality. Yeah.
Yes,
and I know Pedro wants to say something, because your eyes lit up, bro. So what is it? What's on your mind?
No, that was a great response, because, geez, I've seen a lot of, in the military, I've seen a lot of guys that are very control freak, right? Micromanaging and everything. But
like, I can be humble. Like, you call me out, I'll be like, shit, you're right. I'm like, okay, sorry. You know, like I know that I don't know everything. And honestly, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but the more I've learned, or the more the higher I get in all my businesses, the more I realize I don't know. And then I'm like, I fucking don't know shit. And then I'm like, do I know anything right now? Should I even be a nutrition coach after 10 years? I feel like I know nothing. I think it's like the people that sometimes ignorance is bliss. Do we want to be a happy pig? Sometimes I just want to be an ignorant pig, instead of a sad Socrates being like, what do I not know? I have so much to learn. But you can still help people even if you have that imposter syndrome moment, right?
So
but even
here's something interesting that I've noticed about highly successful people. And I'm not just talking business, but like just at a pinnacle of bodybuilding, for example, right? Or whatever, painting, it doesn't matter. But if they're performing at a high level, they often are working from some original trauma that they are overcoming. That's a really common thread. But the other thing also that I've noticed is they tend to have humbleness, especially with respect to knowledge or experience. So what I mean is, sure, you're the CEO of a business. Yeah, have that ego. You can be egotistical about what you've built, the wealth that you have, whatever. But like the really successful ones are humble about being corrected. Like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And they expect that from the people around them, and they will implement that immediately.
Or admitting they just don't know. Like, my father-in-law's a physician, and you ask him a question, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I'll figure it out. I guess I'll find out for you, but I don't know. But he also has a lot of dad jokes, so I never know when to take him seriously. But he's like the best kind of doctor. So like, but there's a lot of people that have that, like, almost the fake alpha, the bad ego, women and men both. You know, like they want to prove themselves or something. I have done more by being objectively the weirdest part of myself. I think I stopped masking after 30, and I'm just like, I'm just going to be plain weird and see what happens, and then it just works. I don't know why. I think it's like people want that authenticity, that transparency these days. They don't want to be schmoozed anymore. That's not a thing. I'm never impressed by how much education someone has, because honestly, I didn't even need my degree. I just finished it because I'm the first in my family to have it. All right. And I paid off that was $80K of student loans. And like, what was it? 2020, they got rid of a lot. I'm like, can I get a refund? Like, I tried really hard. I was like, but anyways, but yeah, I'm not impressed by it. Like, yeah, I am to a certain degree. Like when I talk to people, I'm more impressed by how they lead themselves and people, and you know, how they spend their time, and are they taking care of themselves? You know, I do think there is something to say about that too, is are you going to trust someone that is smoking a pack a day? And no offense to anybody who's addicted to cigarettes and things like that, because I know there's outliers, but you know, if you're someone that has a discipline in yourself, it shows through business as well. Right. And I want to, you know, pick apart those people and learn from them and do that. But I am a control freak. But again, if you say, hey, like, let's do this, I think I'll be better at this. I'm like, all right, go for it. Like, fine by me. Even with the nonprofit work, I just randomly became second command to an extent with the founder, because that's just kind of how it happened, I guess. Just because I'm like, I just take lead where I see it needing it, and then adjust accordingly.
I want to touch about that, taking action. A couple of days ago, or maybe it was last week, that I read someone in post and say, hey, you can go to any mastermind, you can get to all these coach programs, but if you don't take action, it doesn't matter. Right. And I think for me, I'm the same way. I'm like, I take an action. If I want to do something, I plan it and just immediately take action. I have that mentality where it's like an engineer, because originally I was majoring, I will actually apply mathematics, but I'm all about developing and designing. But I'm like the guy that jumps off the cliff and develops the plane or the boat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a key thing that to have when it comes to entrepreneurship or anything in your life, right? So it's,
and I think too, also giving yourself grace to have the days where you just do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs everybody's a little all or nothing these days. And I think what has really helped me with Tuttle Equity is Tuttle Nutrition, coaching people for the past 10 years and learning different ways to coach people and to talk to people. Because I didn't mean to fall into investor relations as hard as I did with Tuttle Equity. I'm just good at networking with people and talking to people. I'll talk to anybody. I don't care. But I do like operation sides more, of course. So I could do a little bit of both. But my first year of Tuttle Equity, I went to all the coaching conferences, all the gurus, did it all. Even the ones I was like, I don't like this person. Possibly. I was like, and I did feel like a sheep at one of them. I was like, ooh, this is just not my people. And I met more people at that one that didn't do anything, that were all sayers, not doers, than at some other ones. I do think you can meet good people everywhere, no matter where it is. I think you'll meet good connections with people, find someone with common ground. But I just did that to like learn and meet people and just kind of get a gauge of what people are doing. And then you kind of learn how many people are just not doing anything. So it's very interesting.
I really relate to what both of you are talking about right now. So the first time I really gambled on myself was business school. And that was 120 grand. It was a 2.5 year, like part-time business school program at UCLA. Right. And I will freely admit to you that I thought things were going to be kind of easy once I went to that. I'm like, hey, this is a pretty good business school, one of the best in the world. And jobs are just going to come to me, and I'm going to be able to leave this dead end job that I hate. And then something's going to fall in my lap. It's going to be great. I had to grind to like find a job. And now part of that was also, I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be fair. However, I still had to work pretty hard to land where I did post MBA. And so what I realized is nothing is handed to you. And even if you make that significant time and financial investment for something like that has the potential, the capacity to be life-changing, you have to take a lot of action and gamble. Honestly, you got to take risks, or it may not pan out for you.
Take the risks. That's the thing. My risk level's a little too high though, so my husband kind of evens me out. Not gonna lie, I was like, hey, honey, like I would be a really good trophy wife and just do philanthropy all day, because I just love that kind of stuff. Like I just know when I retire, even though I could never retire, I love business and doing things. But like, I just know that I'm going to dive into more of the stuff and the hobbies that I love to. I have so many hobbies I want to try that are on like the back burner. I even thought about going for an MBA too, because it was like, just for me, like, I don't need it, but I want it. Like sometimes it's just, that's part of it. And I think that education, I do think, is a powerful tool, but I don't think people should lead with it all the time. I think you have to lead with who you are, your integrity, your morals, how you see the world, how you talk to people. I think that's really what comes apart, and then you learn through the education, and you get better with everything.
Yeah.
Core values. Sorry, Chihiro, but core values is what's missing with a lot of people, and we talk about that a lot, right? So, I think that personally, schools should teach about core values.
I've made some mistakes by not listening to my gut. I have a really strong gut, but I'm doing to get back to what I'm doing. Like I started multifamily, right, and then I'm actually more in development right now. Weirdly, development, RV parks, the whole nine. But I'm thinking about like not just your standard Class A, let me do luxury. Like I'm trying to look at, all right, I have 43 acres outside Sherman. All right, does it make sense to do high-rise apartments? No, because no one wants to live in a rural area on top of each other. But there's going to be a need. When I did when you look out there, people are either revamping the Class Cs that are already available, or they're building Class As. What about the lower middle class that want room, that want a yard? right? The newest thing I think are like these smaller homes with the yards, these communities or podlet communities where they're all shared green and they have the parking in the back. Like we're kind of pushing for that. And I think that's very unique. And again, when I do these projects, the reason I brought this up is I'm partnering with a guy that I actually do trust. I have my PI go through a report with everybody I partner with because I made a big mistake my first year not doing that and not listening to my gut because I was too excited. And I was like, maybe it's just me being nervous. I'm not going to listen to my gut. My gut is freaking strong. And I'm like, now I know. But I back it up with the PI because, again, my investors are my most important thing. I do not partner with anybody who needs the money from the deals we're doing, who doesn't have the same approach as I do, meaning, hey, if the deal kind of goes not as much as we promised, we don't take our cut because reputation is more important than one deal. And I really strongly believe that I can only partner with people that have those same views. Because why am I gonna there's in Tuttle Nutrition, I've had clients where I couldn't get them to where they wanted to go. I couldn't hit the goal, but they left okay. They left happy because they know I tried. You know what I mean? So like it's all about your reputation, your people, and making sure everybody wins. I think a lot of the multifamily development and all the alternate classes, you've always run into the people that are just really greedy or just want to win over everything.
Yeah.
And you're like, guy, you'll win more if everybody wins.
Right.
Like stop being so greedy.
And it goes beyond this deal, meaning,
Yeah.
okay, you might not, instead of getting 35%, you're going to get 30% of the promoter, whatever. Right. But then
I'll take 0% if it saves my reputation and moves me forward.
Exactly. But then think about what other deals can come out of this. But people are short-sighted. So let's get into brass tacks a little bit, right? Because after all, we are an investing podcast and we haven't talked about that yet. So let's do that for a moment here. So, right, you transformed yourself from being an operations-minded nutrition company partner, executive, and you've helped people who are interested in alts, accredited investors, invest into something that they're not used to and make some money. So walk us through that, maybe in the context of this development you're doing. If I'm an accredited investor, I just met you at an event, explain it to me. What are you doing and how can you help me diversify out of stocks and bonds and make money?
What I really love to do too with people, and I think it's kind of relations 101, even my donors with the nonprofit world, you approach it the same way. It's like, talk to them. Don't say you need anything from them because technically you don't. Do you really want everybody to invest with you? Probably not. You need to make sure you have a common ground. So I actually just asked like, hey, I need to learn about you. Like, how much do you have liquid? What are your goals with investing? Are you diversified? Like, I want them diversified. I know that, financial advisors aren't really like, yeah, invest in real estate because there's no bridging that gap, obviously. But I want to make sure that, based off what they are, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do want to know that they are looking at everything. Do you have whole term life? Do you have kids? So like, what are the goals for them? One of my guys was like, no, I don't want him to have anything. I was like, okay, cool. So let's, so he's like, he's fine. But I want to know everything about them a little bit, or as much as they're willing to tell me. And then I want to know, are you a numbers person or are you a words person? Like, do you want me to show you everything or do you want me to just show you like my deal decks? They're like, depends. I'm like, okay, cool. You just let me know. So I'm like one of those people, I'll show you my underwriting. This is how much I make. This is how much you make. What do you care about? Are you a cash on cash person? Are you an overall return person? Do you want long term? Like, I ask all those random questions just to learn them. And then sometimes we go on tangents because I don't know if you've realized I go on tangents. This ADHD brain that I just learned that I had, that everyone told me I had. And yes, I just learned last year. But I'm like, okay, I'll just jump around. But I think like, I just love talking to people and learning about them. And then I kind of understand their goals. But yeah, so what I do is I actually have deals that are similar to the ones I'm going for, right? Even if they're a little bit off, I want that visual component. Most people are visual. So I have a multifamily deal deck that's kind of like the ones I've always done. It's actually my past deal. I just showed them because you don't want to show anything if you're going to mess up with the 506BC. You have to be smart about the security issues, legal issues. But development wise, I'll have a deal deck and I'll show them kind of what I'm looking for. This is kind of what you'll see in every deal deck. Every time I have a deal, these are the overall returns. This is the stress test. This is if I only hit bare minimum. This is if I hit the target, what you'll get. And I make sure I show that all to them. And I'm like, what do you want to see more of? So I kind of let them dictate it. I'm not going to go through the whole presentation and be like, this is everything. And why don't you look at that for 5 minutes okay, I'm not going to do that. It's boring. Get to the point. I also talk too fast. which I think when it comes to like my deal presentation works really well. But when I'm talking to a lot of the Southern gentlemen, they're like, "Can you talk slower?" I was like, "No, you got to hear faster, buddy. I don't know how to tell you." Just kidding. But I make jokes. Okay, it's who I am. I don't know how to not laugh. But yeah, no, I always have my deal decks up. I always have different types of ones so I can show them approximately what they're looking for. Now, if I have an active deal, then yeah, I'm going to show that to them after I've kind of learned what they want. And I'll be like, okay, this deal kind of fits your criteria. If it doesn't, then I'll still show it to them. This is the current deal I have. The reasons why it's not, I would say it's not perfect for you would be this. But if they're newer with me, I don't take all their money. I'm like, hey, like how much do you have liquid? Okay, why don't you just start with the minimum in this one? If you're newer to investing, see how you like it. See if you want to, next one, we'll talk about it. Most of my investors are newer, weirdly, and accredited because they're people from, that find me, or they know my husband or their past clients. And then most of them start with the minimums, and then my next deal they'll do double or triple, depending. So that's how the word of mouth grows. That's how Tuttle Nutrition grew. That's how your reputation's going to grow. Being a woman is interesting because people usually discount me until I talk to them. And also too, I've had some issues with being a woman co-operator and having to like stand my ground a few times. I'm not one to stay quiet. But I actually do respect me. And like, I have a weird mentality. Like, I don't really like modern feminism. I'm more like, I think everybody should respect each other for who they are and what they bring. Like, I always still make sure my husband's name's on first of things. I don't know why. That's just like a weird thing. Maybe it's the Greek culture. I don't know. But I feel respected. Like I can do whatever I want and he'll support me. So I just think people get a little too extreme, like everything. But when it comes to me looking the way I am, being a female, being kind of young too, and going out to all these networking opportunities, I do get discounted. And it's kind of fun. I do play with it a bit. But it's just, it's one of those things I kind of tackle depending on who I'm talking to, because I can already tell if they discount me or not. And then usually I kind of either say, fuck it, I'm just going to mess with this guy and have fun. Or I'm like, I gained his trust. Let's go. So find your people, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So how many deals have you done in multifamily and or any other? What types of deals have you done?
Mainly multifamily value add, to be honest.
Okay.
I just had a development deal. We couldn't finalize the lending, so that one didn't pass through, but we're doing a modified version of that I'm starting a fund. So we're doing a modified version of that for the fund. And I have 2 development deals in the works aside from that. So we have 3 development deals we're putting in our fund. I'm going 50-50 with a guy that I trust. And he has a lot of the experience with development because, again, you have to know what you don't know. Him and his wife have worked together for many years. Me and my husband worked together various years. But it's funny because we both have the different pieces of the puzzle that work well together. And we learned that through the last deal we did together. And I'm excited about it, though, because I can leverage his experience and make it better, right? Make his processes better, make sure I can take action on the things that he's not the best at, right? And vice versa. But I also have gotten connections randomly just through my networking. I mean, I knew nobody in Texas, but 3.5 years ago, I moved here and you just meet people. But someone was like, hey, I have 43 acres out in Wainwright or Whitewright, whatever. Can you help me do something with it? I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And so then I go to the right people to figure that out. Another guy I met through the nonprofit world has a shared 10 acres in Rome, really nice acreage, like worth a lot. The HAB just went across the street. Like it's a corner one. Like we have so many fun ideas for it. So we're pitching that to him next week because they want to do something with it too, him and his buddy. I'm like, that's great. And they both can seller finance the land. Beautiful. So I'm just kind of taking advantage of people coming to me being like, hey, I have questions, and I'll take anybody's call. But I'll tell them straight up like, hey, this isn't my wheelhouse, but I'll figure it out for you and I'll find the right people for it. Or these are my ideas, but let me double check that they make the most sense for this. I have 2 this morning. I just got 2 DMs from random people that want to talk about what they can do in real estate. And usually they end up either becoming my investor or I help them become a GP in a different way. One guy has RV parks, like glamping RV parks, which I find very cool. Yeah. One time I do want to do that. We were going to do that in the Whitewright property up near Sherman, but someone else is doing it nearby. I just learned that. I'm like, thank God I didn't go through with that, because you want to do your due diligence and making sure you're not going to be too competitive with those things. But that's just really interesting. I love the different asset classes now.
Yeah.
I think it's more fun.
Yeah, so I got my start in multifamily, doing exactly what you've done, value add multifamily. I have one property left at this point. We're continuing to operate that, but more recently, I've moved into investing in businesses, and the distinction is the similarity is obvious, right? Like we're syndicating capital from investors, but the leverage is lower, the rates are higher. So really it's a capital markets thing that, in my opinion, makes business investing more attractive or less volatile.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say more attractive, but it's certainly less volatile because the debt capital markets are not subsidized.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good and the bad. The good with those subsidized loans that through Fannie and Freddie is people like you and I can get into it. And we can get into real estate private equity through grinding and networking and underwriting dozens of deals and
Yes.
you can get into a business that would otherwise be out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also drawbacks that come with that.
Yeah, like the fund we're doing.
Entry.
Yeah, the fund we're doing too is like I was actually nervous about doing a fund because I try to put on my LP hat. Like, does this make sense from a standpoint? What if one of the deals falls through and the deal that I really wanted, like, it messes up all three. But if you go in with kind of equal risk profiles for the fund, it makes the most sense. So now I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And now we can mitigate the risk among the three deals or however many deals you're doing in that fund. But we just have to make sure that each fund has similar risk profiles for each asset or project that's going in the fund. I think where people mess up is they try to put every single deal in the fund. I'm like, no, you got to make sure it makes sense. Like maybe put that as an offstanding one. If it's a higher risk profile, don't put it in the fund. Just, take care of your people. I think that's the difference there too.
I have a question for you regarding the, I guess it's in white, right? Your proposed development, which is to say, yes, virtually every multifamily development I've ever seen is Class A. And so there is this gap. There's this hollowed out middle for like Class B multifamily or lack thereof. And the explanation I always hear is it's not economical for the developer to build Class B because the rents can't justify the build costs. So if you were to build something like that in order to meet this important need in any community really across the country, how do you do that? How do you execute on building more affordable, high density housing?
You get really creative, man. Like, I mean, there's two options on this land. She wants cash flow. I'm going with the owner's goals in mind. She wants cash flow. She's like, you know what? Why don't we build apartments and I can property manage? I was like, doctor, you were going to be demoted to $80,000 a year, and like, no, you're not going to want to. She's like, okay, I understand. So we had to be a little creative with the options there. Building nice Class B apartments, I don't think would make sense, honestly. But we want to build up the cash flow. But I do think those modular, those mini homes, people want. People are not going to be able to afford mortgages, but they have to be minimum of 2 bedrooms because the kids, families, right? No one's going to want to live 20 minutes out by themselves in a rural area, really. I mean, yes, some do, but you know what I mean, is you have to cater to what's going in there. TI's going into Sherman. People don't want to live on top of each other in Sherman. They're going to want to live 10, 15 minutes out. I get it. So the mini homes are actually cost effective and they're nice. And they're technically Class B once they're done, because they're not going to be like the highest amazing fixtures, but they're going to be like really nice still and affordable. And people can, we're either going to go like rent to own or sell them outright, depending on what project we want to do there. But yeah, we're tackling a bunch of different options for the mini homes, and they're not technically mini. I mean, you can get a mini home for $50K all in cost, depending on which option you go for. So it can make sense depending on how creative you're going to be, and depending on, you just don't want to cut too many corners is my problem.
Are these tiny homes in the sense of like they're trucked in like a mobile home, or
that's one of the options. One of the options. That's not the I think we're either going to go with that. We're still like in the preliminary, like doing the financials and figuring out which way we're going to go, because that is an option, or at least have them partially built and then finished on site, or you actually do it completely off site and bring them in. That is actually affordable and cost effective, and they're still really nice. So like, you want to make sure that what you're providing is something that they're going to want to stay in, for one, and they get their yards and they get their animals and they don't feel like they're living on top of each other. And you could start, based off the cash flow from those, you can build a really nice amenity center for them, and expand it as you wish. Because the area, it's like really cool acreage, what she has back there. And so I think we're going to play around with that. Or, if she just wants the money, like she wants continuous cash flow, but I'm like, okay, what if we just build the road? It depends on the county though, because the county, we could just do a really nice like rock road. If they make us do like an actual to county standards, that might cost a pretty penny, like $400K, but we'll build the road, we'll subdivide, whatever, and then we could sell it. And then she could pocket it and then put that into something that will give her the cash flow. So I'm kind of giving her both the options. But again, it's like she could have come to me with this and I've been like, I don't really know anything about that because I didn't. But I have talked to all the people that do. And I put in the effort to make sure it gets done. I even have this guy that is a CEO of a company, a flight school, right? Because I also, the veteran nonprofit I'm with, we help veterans who are pursuing careers in aviation. I know it's random. I'm not a veteran. I'm not in aviation. Long story. But anyways, so he's friends with me. He's like, hey, like I have these flight schools. If you help me find some multifamily, I'd buy them. I was like, yeah, okay. What's the buy box? So where I have people looking at that now, what we would do is we wouldn't turn it into student housing. We would, because honestly, that would mess up funding and cause some issues. But what we would do is as the leases turn up, we do it by bed or by room. And then you have to keep it for, I think, 10 years. I forget the issue about that. Old Capital was teaching me about this. They go above and beyond for me. I really like them. So, you would have to do it a certain way, but like, that's an opportunity I didn't have to take, but I'm taking, I wouldn't have to find investors for it. So all I have to do is find the right deals, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's within 10 miles of his flight schools and the right kind of amount of rooms and everything. And here we go. So that would be like a multifamily play student housing, but it's not like regular student housing where you have to worry about them having too many parties. Like these people are paying 6 figures to go to flight school. All right. They're studying. So I think it's like, you take advantage of opportunities when people come to you and you're like, you don't want to go outside what or if you really don't understand it, don't take it on. But I've networked so much that I know who to ask at this point. And I think that's the difference in the past few years to help me with those projects.
Yeah. I really hope modular housing takes off. I know there's some greater investment going into that, but I was in Japan recently in October in 2 very different cities, in Sapporo in the north and then Tokyo. And, wouldn't you know it, in Japan, like basically every new house is it's modularly built. You can tell it's modular. It's beautiful. It's new. There's nothing, chintzy or anything like that about it. There's nothing negative to say. It just, you can tell it's modular, but it's a beautiful new home. And I wonder, like, why don't we do that here?
I think
we talk about this more housing supply crisis, and there's a solution called modular housing. We don't do it.
There's some apartments getting built by pieces of modular. I forget where it was, but they had one that was like, I think it's San Antonio. There was a fully modular hotel or apartment building or something like that. It was fully built offsite, and they just brought it in and just like, I'm like, very interesting. Good.
No, I was going to say it just depends on the city, right? Because every city has this like ordinance code, and you got to follow it, and it's so old that I'm like, they still haven't updated. There's no one lobbying and changing these codes at all. So that's one of the reasons. But that's where we're promoting Texas.
Well, the good thing about White Right too is we're outside everything. So but the only thing is that would be an issue is like, okay, if this county doesn't want to approve, they're just like, go over there, and you go over there, and they're like, no, just have the county approve it. And then you're like, who do I talk to? Like, who wants to deal with me right now? But that's honestly not I'm still in a gray area with permitting and all that stuff. So I learn as I go with that. I make sure, that would be my partner. I just kind of pay attention because I learn by doing. And I mean, like I said earlier when we were talking, like every business I've been at, I was able to make better by learning and being kind of engulfed in it. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what to do to make this more efficient and the process. Like I just had our nonprofit buy software. We weren't spending any money. No one's paid on here. Like, I'm like, we want to increase donor relations. We can still keep this a personal, not nonprofit without getting too big, but we need to make sure that no one falls through the cracks. Like we want to make sure donor relations, it's almost like your investors, like trying to make sure no one falls through the cracks. Like I had to fix my CRM issue because I was talking to so many people. I'm a paper person and I'm like, oh shit, I'm forgetting people. So you have to find a system that works for you, because sometimes it's not going to work for everybody. Everyone's so different. And I'm like, why don't we trial and error at this point?
Right.
you know?
It's just developing your systems and process is really important. And, so it's one of the things that as investors, we always ask, like, how are you managing all these projects? But explaining to someone and say, look, this is how we set up. This is the teams that we have. I know so many people in the past that try to raise capital, and this is a one-man show, a one-woman show, right? It's like, you got to have a team. You not have to, run those teams as well. Because, if an investor is going to look at that, they're going to be like, well, I don't feel comfortable. I've seen it a lot with startups. I used to work with a lot of startup companies, and that's one of the biggest questions, like, who's your team? What's the experience? But definitely from what I'm seeing with you, it's like we're hearing from you. Actually, it's the key here for a lot is system process, building relationships, and at the same time, which one thing that I really like what you said was understanding what are the investors wants, goals, and everything, right? I used to be a financial advisor, and that's one of the questions I used to ask my clients, like, what are your goals, right? Just can't throw a product to them because it's not going to fit them, right? So
I had an investor literally find me on LinkedIn. We had a Zoom, and he's like, you're the only one that asked me about me ever. I've talked to a lot of GPs. He's like, you're the only one that really asked me about myself. I was like, weird. I'm like, that's all I do. Like, I'd rather just talk and shoot the shit versus actually talking about the deal because I want to learn about you. I think, I don't know, that's the difference. I don't know. You got to know your people. Like, hey, like there's one client, I knew the month her mom died. I never really knew that, like, but every year I'd be like, hey, I hope you're doing well this month, because I knew it was such an impact for her. And she would stop being my client for years, and I still would message her. Like, I don't remember everything, mind you, but I do try my best. Because I forget a lot of things. I'm very visual. I need my things. I need, like, even tracking my clients, my nutrition client stuff. I actually have a system I created in Evernote for it. So there's always the systems, and you just have to get better at it. You're never going to be perfect all the time. But as long as you kind of keep tweaking it as you go, it gets better. Right.
Yeah. Great conversation here, you guys. It's said that every business is three things, right? People, process, product. And I think out of those three, the one that is most often forgotten about or overlooked is absolutely its process, And so this discussion is, I think, really valuable in terms of
one thing you'll like to know, guys, is like recently my team on one of my acquisitions, it's like, I'm not leading that team. Okay. I end up just randomly leading things because that's where I fall, and I get that. But with this one, I had to make sure I catered to their leadership. Okay. So that's a whole different ballgame. I do have the strengths of being a leader and getting things done, but what if the head operators are not good at leading? That's an issue, right?
Yes.
So it was more just like, I will cater to, I'll give you the respect until I'm like, hey, listen, I'm feeling like I'm losing the respect because you're micromanaging the shit out of me. I'm not okay with that. Again, I can reason with what you want, but you just have to be blunt. Like, I don't take the gray area well and me trying to figure you out. Like, I'm just, let me know what you need and what you want, right? I was put in charge of something, which was like the rebrand. And then, oh no, we want to tweak this. I could have gotten this done months ago. Okay. But if they wanted it like their last apartment, and by the way, they're great operators, but if they wanted that signage like their last apartment, they should have just told me from the get-go, because I did it my way. All right. I've always been told by any boss I had before I worked for myself, Alexia, you get things done, but I can't tell you how to do it. Two bosses told me that, and I never really understood that until I had some insight, because I got a lot of insight in my 20s, man. I did a lot of work, but yeah, I was just like, really? Oh, does that make me difficult? Like, I was like, oh shit. But yeah, no, like, again, you can't micromanage people. So recently, again, another leadership thing, I had a development project. I put the people in place for it. The people that I knew that would work, because I knew, okay, that I have this guy, Quentin, who's a great underwriter. I don't do my underwriting anymore because I trust him. He makes things not work. Meaning, if it works, if he says it pencils, I'm like, holy shit, it really works, because I know how he underwrites now. It took me a while to trust him and to offset that, right? And I was like, okay, we don't know a lot about this type of development. I met this girl, Chris from Seattle. She'd be perfect. And she ended up being perfect. So like, you find the right people. Nonprofit space, we have a lot of volunteers. It's very hard to find volunteers with nonprofits that
Yes.
stay. So we have recent calls. It's like, hey guys, like, what are you good at? What are you not so good at? What do you like to do? What do you hate to do? And I just kind of talked to each of them and kind of took notes. And I was like, okay, well, we're not going to put them there. Like, I want to make sure that they feel valued. And then I contacted our media guy. Hey, I want to put something on the site showcasing our volunteers. I want to make sure that they are out showcased with their photo, some type of branding. You know what I mean? Because like the ones that've been with us for a few years, like I want to make sure that they feel like they're part of the team. And it's just like, it's little things like that, I think, is like learning the people, making sure they're in the right spot, and then checking with them. Hey, you did this last year. Do you want to do this again? Like, what would you change? What would you want different? Same thing with operating teams. Like, you have to do teams with development, with RV parks, with multifamily. You're going to probably work with different teams. They're always not going to be great. So, hey, like, why don't you say something versus being pissed at the person? Be like, hey guys, let's have a team meeting, because I feel like we're getting offhand. And I feel like things are falling through the cracks. Like, we need to fix some things. Don't be afraid to say something, because again, it's your investors' money. I mean, probably your money too, because we all invest in our deals, but that's the reputation. Fix the little things, fix the team issues. Don't get, and I think the people that take things too hard are people you'll never want to work with again, because they can't be humble enough to know that everybody can make mistakes or people can improve. Is that integrity? What is that called? Insight?
It's something.
It's something, right? Like, so, I mean, the people that are good team members or people that you might want to grow with are the ones that can take that and be like, oh, okay, all right, maybe we can tweak this, or at least just for this deal, we need to focus more over here. How can we do that together?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's a process in the military now. This is more of a brief thing, not in depth, but it's called AARs, after action reviews, right? So like, you talk about like what went well, three things. Give me three things that went well, three things that needs improvement, right? And then just kind of, that's how we help each other out in teams in order to get better at the next mission. And so definitely what you talk about, right, is like, let me know, what can we do if we're going to do this next year? If we so, then what we need to improve on next, right? So
people are afraid to speak. You can just communicate. You can communicate well, like not try to be like, hey, I'm going to invoke a defensive reaction, right? Like, you just say, hey, like, maybe do a compliment sandwich. Some people need that, right? You say what they're good at, mention the issue, and then end with a compliment. Like, sometimes you have to learn your people. Like, there's one person on the team, I'm like, they're not going to take well to that. All right, let me figure out how I can get through to them without them instantly being defensive and not listening to anything I say. Like, there are people like that, and you have to learn how to deal with people. So it's definitely a people business. If you want to operate effectively, you got to know your people, and then also have a checks and balances in place too. Because if you have too many leaders on a team, like, who's checking with who?
Right.
Who's making sure things are getting done?
Yeah.
Pedro, you might like this. Have you ever heard of The Wisdom of the Bullfrog book?
I've heard of it. Never read it.
I think it's a retired Navy.
Okay.
Really good leadership book for anybody that's leading teams, or even if in general you want to learn how to, lead a team more effectively or be on a team more effectively. I've never been I've always been very independent though. So it's kind of funny that I'm on teams. I've always been like the odd sheep, the outlier growing up. And so it's funny that now I work with a lot of teams. Never really thought about I would do that, to be honest.
Well, as we wind towards our conclusion here, I want to ask you, Alexia, what's the number one, or you can give two pieces of advice to somebody who is an accredited investor, and what's your advice to them in terms of taking that step to investing in some sort of private offering that gets them diversified out of stocks and bonds and on a path towards building wealth?
So it's a tough one. It depends on how much they know. I mean, knowledge is key, right? So I would learn about it first, not get yourself scared about it, but go know the basics, then approach someone that you believe you trust, and then ask the questions. Because that's how a lot of my people learn, is they're like, hey, I'm kind of nervous about this. Like, I'm usually into this, but I don't understand this. I'm like, let me make you understand it. Like, you don't have to jump into every deal I'm in, but I want you to get it. So why don't we'll do a Zoom. Anybody you trust that actually can show you things, go through it with them, and then sit on it for a bit. That's what she said. I'm so sorry. And then ask for another call. I know I'm so bad with jokes. Ask for another call to go over any of the questions that you've learned afterwards, right? So I usually go over it with them, send them the material, ask for the material, the deal decks, anything that you can learn from if you're visual, or just, have a couple calls with them first and then, go from there. But I wouldn't put everything in one box, like.
I like that. So you can be afraid to invest in something, whether it's private equity, oil and gas, VC, whatever, but don't be afraid to reach out to that person to learn about it.
You got to trust the person too, for one. So when I tell my new people, hey, you got to trust in the deal we're doing, but you also got to trust in me. And so those are the two things you got to learn about first. If you don't trust me fully, I wouldn't invest yet. That's a big thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wise words. Well, thank you for joining us here on Beyond Stocks. Pedro, take us home, man.
All right. So if you guys know, so if you're watching this video, share this video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Any questions you have, send us a message and we'll pass it on to Alexia. Actually, you know what? Alexia, what is the best way for the audience to connect with you?
Oh gosh, I hate text, so don't text me. But email is best. You can find everything on my sites on tuttlebrands.com. I had to make a landing page because I do a lot, obviously. But tuttleequity.com, just send me something through there and we'll talk.
Awesome. All right, guys, take care until the next one.